Aloha kako. Aloha. So I'm going to aloha first the Mauna, the name Kukahau'ula. Everyone in this room, the kia'i who stand on the Mauna, those of you who have seen periodically throughout the time at least that I've been involved, 2009, until this very moment. So I'm here today to talk about these cultural policies, and I'm going to go through a few of the items because we did bring an original copy with all of our attachments, but I just want for the record to say that on the website or within the agenda, there is no comment point person to send these to. So if we know who to send the comments to, and if it's indicated on the website or with the agenda, that would help us to have a sufficient amount of materials that we should have sent in. So instead, I have a copy for all of you. However, they do not have the attachments with them. So what I'm going to be talking about today is the cultural comments that are proposed and have been revised actually without any consultation by those of us who requested consultation to be consulted and the public at large. So I'm going to start with, and I'm not going to go through this packet. I know that we just have a little bit of time, but I just want to point out some glaring reasons why we cannot possibly move forward with approving any cultural action items, not today at least, and not until all of the requirements and recommendations and guidelines have been fulfilled. So what do I mean by that? So prior to adopting or approving these action items that you are discussing today, the guidelines regarding the process for developing these draft policies must be followed as stipulated by the BLNR approved Mauna Kea Comprehensive Management Plan, the Cultural Resource Management Plan, and other associated plans. So this is what we contend today. We contend that such guidelines have not been followed and that proper consultation has not been conducted. So it clearly states in the CRMP that the Kahuku Mauna Council will take the lead in making recommendations for policies regarding cultural practices. The Council will consult with representatives of the Mauna Kea Management Board, Hawaiian Culture Committee, the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, the Hawaii Island Burial Council, and Hawaiian civic clubs prior to developing final policy recommendation. I am a board member of the Waimea Hawaiian Civic Club, and I am their education chairperson, and I have not been consulted or notified about any of these policies. Kahuku Mauna shall work with families with lineal and historical connections to Mauna Kea, cultural practitioners, and other Native Hawaiian groups, including the Mauna Kea Management Board's Hawaiian Culture Committee, toward the development of appropriate procedures and protocols regarding cultural issues. And I believe that I fit into that category as well and have not been consulted. There was a formal request made in our testimony submitted to MKMB at this October 2016 meeting requesting consultation on these proposed action items. However, we have never been contacted regarding these proposed newly drafted action items, even though a formal request was made to be consulted. Likewise, we weren't even notified that these matters would be on your agenda for this meeting. We found out about this meeting on social media. Therefore, any comments we have are limited due to the time that we've actually spent reviewing since we found out about the meeting on Facebook And so we are asking that these comments be reflected as that comments, not consultation, and that they are limited in scope because of the time limit. So what I would like to do is just point out just a few items, and again, you will get a copy of these. So I'm just going to review a couple of them in the time that I have. So on CR5, which refers to ho'okupu, these are the kinds of comments we're making. I'm not reading out the policy because I have a few minutes. I'm just going to give you an example of the kinds of comments that we put together for today, and I'll just do one each, although of course it just gives you a little glimpse into the scope of what we need to address before any such policies can be made. So, should be deleted from the policy. Removal of items considered ho'okupu, including food items, should be left as the kuleana of cultural practitioners to malama. Restricting food items as part of ho'okupu is unwarranted. Preventing food offerings would impede Native Hawaiian traditional and customary practices and violate such protected rights. It is a traditional and customary practice to sometimes include food items as part of ho'okupu. There is no justification for this guideline. There's a false pretense that the placement of food as part of a ho'okupu would create a health or environmental situation. Again, there is a false justification and a pretense that that would occur. I'm going to CR7, guidelines for the placement of cultural features. New cultural features shall be placed out of plain sight, or a minimum of 100 yards from existing roads and in designated areas to discourage copycat behavior. I'm going to skip to our comment on that. There's no justification for this guideline. There's a false pretense that there would be copycat behavior. However, this claim can't be substantiated. Case in point, with the existing, I'm just going to carry on here, with the existing 3 ahu constructed by the Royal Order of Kamehameha several decades ago at Pukahaula, near Halipohaku and Pu'uhuluhulu, there hasn't been any copycat behavior by any non-cultural practitioners of the building of ahu. For example, with the very visible ahu at Pu'uhuluhulu with thousands of people, including visitors and residents alike, passing by and stopping in this area. Has anyone ever seen a copycat ahu along Saddle Road? A'ole. If the placement of pohaku is not being done by Native Hawaiian culture practitioners, it is assumed it's being done by uninformed visitors. If so, then appropriate signage and effective persuasive messages in brochures and in other media formats should be distributed. I'm going to go to the next one, although there's a list in here of comments. I'll go to CR9. Ahu, cultural features, are not simply the stacking of rocks. Ahu are culturally significant and have as their basis a Native Hawaiian traditional cultural practice with purpose and meaning. There is reason to believe, however, that a large number of the single rock features and small concentrations of piled or stacked rocks on Mauna Kea are modern, and that many were constructed by non-Hawaiian visitors in the last decade or so. So background, I'm reading that from the discussion report. Firstly, the aforementioned statements in bold, which there is a reason to believe that a large number of single rock features, on and on, attributed to the CMP and archaeological surveys have been fabricated and do not reflect what's culturally written in these reports. I'm going to continue. what I'm going to say about all of these, because I know that time is short and we all know each other, and you know me and I know you, whether it's administrative rules, whether it's these policies. These are our cultural practices. Anyone reading these policies know that they are over-exaggerated. They are meant to micromanage our practices. They will diminish our practices when you tell us what and where we can practice on the Mauna. And Kahuku Mauna, I have to say that I believe you are appointed, I'm hoping, because of your expertise in such matters and your own cultural practices. So you would realize at first glance that these will be substantial in its impact upon our cultural practices, and that is one against the law, and it is just against everything that is still part of who we are. So we contend that these newly drafted cultural practices, which have not been reviewed by us, we have no understanding of who drafted them, when they were drafted and revised. These are newly drafted without consultation. We contend that these newly drafted cultural policies have been developed by OMKM without any adequate consultation as required by the CMP and the CRMP, and it would adversely and significantly impact Native Hawaiian tradition and customary practices and rights that are protected by constitutional law. We are not the problem. We have a right to these practices on our Mauna, and to stand here and to stand on the Mauna and to stand in contested cases and to stand in the Supreme Court over and over and over again to say the same thing to essentially the same group of people is exhausting. But at some point in time, your lease on the Mauna will be over, or your job will be over because you'll get another one and you'll move away from here, or not. My lease on the Mauna will never be over. That's why I have to stand here and say these things all over again. We also contend that these newly drafted cultural policies are based upon false and inaccurate information and justifications. That they include several sections that are incomplete, inappropriate, and or in violation of existing federal and state laws. And I believe when the time comes for the administrative laws to be reviewed, I'm going to be standing here saying the same thing. So I'm going to close by saying I don't know whose responsibility it is, whether it's Kahuku Mauna, with all due respect, or if it's Office of Mauna Care Management, who's responsible and accountable for proper consultation or even notifying us of meetings. I don't know, but someone is. So I'm going to close by saying, and this is really to Kahuku Mauna, I refer to myself as a kia'i, and my purpose is to ku kia'i Mauna, to stand as a guardian, a watchman, a caretaker as defined in the Hawaiian Dictionary. Where do I ku? On the Mauna, like a mountain. These traditional words you won't find as one word in the dictionary, but are they new? No. In every sense, in the very definition of the word is tradition, spirit, culture, lineage, who we are destined to be when we accept the kuleana, to do so. To Kahuku Mauna, if you are our eyes, our ears, our heart in these discussions, I'm not sure if you represent us. I hope not. Because when you do represent me, this is what I hope that you are. Kahu, an honored attendant, a guardian, a nurse, a keeper of the bones, a regent, administrator, warden, caretaker, master, mistress, pastor, minister, reverend, preacher of a church. Kahu implies the most intimate and confidential relations between the gods and its keeper or its guardian. Ku, standing, Mauna, for the mountain, not for anything else but the mountain. And right now, if Kahukumauna, you have been any part of these cultural practices, and you were ready to weigh in and approve them, then you are not representing me or any of us as the definitions in the Hawaiian dictionary would instruct you to do. These items are not beneficial for us. They are not beneficial for the past 7 generations or the 7 to come. So I'm going to say today, right here and now, there is no way you could go forward. No way. Because you have not even met the requirements set forth on these papers, in these documents, at these meetings. Not that you haven't met my request, or my emotional outburst, or my connection to the Mauna. No. But because you haven't met the requirements that are laid out here for you to meet. I have not seen you in a meeting. I have not been invited to a meeting. That has to be done before we can go any further. And should you ever approve these as is, these will follow us all after all of our terms. They don't end when you leave your term. As a kahu, ku, mauna, they will follow us. And I see that you're about to tell me to wrap it up, and I understand that. I'm not sure that I've made my point today, but there's no way you can go on today without completing this process. This is a pattern we have. This is not new. We have been doing this since I've been in it. They've probably been doing this far longer if they've been standing for the Mauna as a kia'i. Far longer than me, and already I am tired. But I am here. I'm going to leave this room, kalamai, to those who are going to testify after, because I have this school from Calgary here who are very interested, and I'm going to be taking them up to the Ahu next. So I say kalamai that I won't be here to hear you, but I will support you, and at the Ahu I will pule for all of you, and for all of you as well. So mahalo nui, I have these papers. When we have a contact person, we'll send all of the attachments. I believe I have one, because that's how we are, that has everything in it, and I will give that to you folks. And Kukahau'ula, the name of this building, I have no doubt, is standing with us today just as Pele is flowing to the sea. So, eo.
Thank you, Paul. Any other public testimony on the items that are to come? Board members, we do have some additional information that Stephanie and Shane will be providing us once we